Faze being a fucking mess again. I mean, we can all get behind that, right? I mean, they have lurched from one just consistent problem to another, and every time they've gone just a terrible stance. Like every time, like publicly, they just adopt this terrible position in public, which the only people that it would appeal to are their like sort of 14-year-old fans. And I think at this point, I think if you look the way they've handled everything since the Tfue situation went down, quite clearly this is an organization
real journalism
that's not really interested in what's right for long term for the business, what's right in industry perceptions. It's just about keeping those sort of deluded kids on board with the whole phase up, buy our merch gibberish. And let me tell you, from an industry perspective, like Faze look like fucking garbage right now. I mean, you go out and you talk to the average esports lawyer or the average esports owner, or the average esports businessman or the average journalist that happens to be peering in and seeing what's going on, and you will not find any good things about Faze being said or being passed around. The perception generally is that what they're doing is predatory, bad, negative, and they've sort of doubled down on that. I mean, the High Sky stuff, obviously, I wrote the story and about, how because Faze can be classified as being in the entertainment industry, they probably needed a permit to have High Sky stream and broadcast. And certainly this is something that the California Labor Commission is going to take a long look at. And if they're ruled to be in the entertainment industry and they haven't got the permit, which I've checked and they don't, then this could be a very complex, a very long, drawn-out, complex, but ultimately losing issue for Faze. And I think that's why...
My mother's belly is swollen with your child. See you next month to sign the birth certificate, Kappa.
Yep, excellent. I'll be right along to grace the appearance of yet another Richard Lewis love child. I'm the only person who simultaneously can be an incel and a virgin and also be everyone's father. It's quite incredible. So basically, one of the things they've been doing is, really pushing this idea that they did absolutely nothing wrong in the High Sky case. And, for those who don't know, High Sky was 11 when he signed a contract to work for Faze. I mean, supposedly there's a contract, right? Because Banks is out there telling everyone the contract is bulletproof, quote, and they'll give $10,000 to anyone who can point to a law that they broke. I pointed to 6 in my article. Haven't had $10,000 from Banks, Faze. They haven't even contacted me to ask how I would like to receive it. And neither has Keemstar, actually, who also put up his own $10,000. In fact, from what I can tell, he's muted all replies to my reply to him saying, here's the laws that they've broken. Because, I look into these things before spitting out mad hyperbole into the community. But anyway, when that comes, rest assured, when the 10,000, because, I mean, these people aren't dishonest. There's no way that they would say, we'll give you $10,000 if you can point to a law that Faze broke. You point to 6, and then they wouldn't pay up. I mean, there's no way that would happen. So when it arrives, I am going to probably give it to a child's charity of some sort, so don't worry, because, I'm not a profit man, I'm not into all that bullshit. But anyway, they've vitriolically denied any wrongdoing with the High Sky issue, and I think this stance is going to bite them on the ass. But just because I think they honestly do not care about how shit they come across to everybody but Faze fans. They did something that is actually, like, on the surface, it's funny, right? And we should laugh about it, But actually, the more and more you peel back the layers of the fucking onion, you realize it isn't an onion. It's a shit, and in the middle is a Faze logo made of peanuts and sweet corn. That's what you realize you're actually getting, because this isn't really that funny. when you take a moment to think about it. So I'll get into this. And this is the Deserto news story about
That's
it.
Right.
Which is
the train wreck that keeps on.
Oh, it is. I mean, listen, I'm sure that there's some people out there who are going to be like, "Oh, Richard, you're really milking this Faze thing for clicks." You know, I mean, that's never really been my style, but periodically you get a story so ridiculous, you get people behaving in such a ridiculous fashion that the coverage never ends. The hits just keep on coming, right? So, you know, Phantom Lord was an example of that, right? The iPad Power stuff was an example of that. And what if you go and look at like my YouTube metrics or any of my social media metrics, whenever dumb stuff's happening in esports, like all my followings go up by, you know, a significant spike, and then, you know, it'll drop off, and then it'll spike again, and it'll drop off. Because I'm the only guy who talks about this stuff, because I've made a promise to myself that I'm not really all that interested in sort of, you know, pandering. Like, I'm pretty sure if I pick up the phone to Banks and say, hey, like, if you pay me some money, I'll completely just lie and take all this public pressure and heat off and stop being the only guy who's sort of credible that's actually criticizing you. And they probably do it. They probably cut me a check, and then we sit down, we do a really fake, contrived interview, and I go, oh, so I'm totally wrong. Well, nothing to see here, and, you know, I get a big fucking paycheck, you know, and a Faze medallion, and I'm in the Faze gang. I'm in the Clout gang. You know, I could do that, right? But, like, I'm not interested in that. So I'm interested in really piling on the pressure, because this is a fucking scummy organization. And what they've done is pretty fucking scummy in the latest, sort of round of nonsense coming out of Faze Clan. And this is that they took this 12-year-old kid and they got him to release a diss track about Tfue.
That's right.
And again, on the surface,
for a reason.
That is true. Thank you for the sub. But so they get this kid to release a diss track about Tfue. Now, what you're going to notice about the diss track is this diss track, and clearly this 12-year-old kid didn't sit down with a fucking pad and a pen and write a diss track to Tfue. In fact, I'd wager that the kid probably only has slightly mild negative feelings towards Tfue because of the collateral damage. Unless his parents and Faze are all up in his ear, you know, filling his head with shit that this is all Tfue's fault and not actually Faze's. But what you have to remember is you can't really pin all of this on like, oh, you know, Tfue, because, you know, he'd already lied before he was in Faze. His parents obviously already lied and were okay with a lie. Faze merely compounded that lie. So, you know, he is collateral damage, and I do feel a little bit sorry for him. But equally, these rules are in place for a reason on platforms like Twitch. It's to protect kids, and he is a kid at the end of the day. So, obviously, Faze as an org are very interested in protecting kids, right? So what they did was they decided to take all of their thoughts, all of their feelings about how Tfue is a traitor and he's fucking over the organization and what he did is really bad and he's a snitch and he fucked over this kid and nearly ruined his dreams. And they basically wrote it all down and then gave it to the kid and said, say this. Also, despite us being involved in multiple lawsuits, including some that have non-payment of media fees, we're going to hire Logan Paul to appear in the diss track to give this the most reach to this demographic of children. And you have to start asking yourself, well, why are they doing this? Well, I'll explain it quite explicitly before we listen to the abomination of the diss track. What they're doing is, by having a collaboration between Logan Paul and High Sky One, what they're doing is they are ensuring that that key demographic for Fortnite and that key demographic for Faze of children who don't know any better, because they're fans of Logan Paul, they're fans of Fortnite, therefore they're fans of High Sky One. What they're doing is ensuring that those kids hear one version of the story, and that version is that Tfue is a traitor, ungrateful, a snitch, a bad person, right? Not that, you know, oh, he had a bad contract. As you'll see, they really gloss over all of that nonsense in the diss track. And they put him in a position, right? So, and why are they doing that? Well, because we all know Tfue wants to start his own organization. And what type of business, you know, what type of people do you think his organization is going to be attracting? This demographic. So what they're doing is they're deliberately poisoning the well with this false version of the story told by a child with Logan Paul to ensure that those same kids get the maximum exposure to it. So that in itself is very sinister, very cynical. When you hear the diss track itself, it's pretty bad. I mean, you know, and just and if you're wondering, well, maybe Logan Paul did it. Logan Paul wouldn't get out of bed unless there was a paycheck in it for him. He is one of the most money-hungry motherfuckers of all time, which is why even his content is a commercial. That's why, you know, again, this is somebody who should have been tore down by the FTC for improper advertising to children, but these people are bulletproof. These people are immune because they make big money for corporations. That's why small content creators who make, you know, oh, should we really believe the narrative about this particular issue? Banned, gone. I'm going to film a dead body rather than report it. I'm going to, you know, tase a dead rat or whatever the fuck it was. I'm going to encourage children to wear a blindfold and play in traffic. I'm going to fucking promote scam sites, fake case openings for mansions that they don't even own. This is all fine. This is all fine because he makes too much money for YouTube. So, I can tell you firsthand, and this is how I know that this is true. By the way, Logan Paul and you know, Jake Paul will say anything for money. They will say anything for money. And you know how I know this to be true? Because they promoted the H1Z1 League when all of the money came tumbling, where all of that disastrous spending went. When all of that was broken down, H1Z1 had spent like 10 grand just to get Logan Paul or Jake Paul, one of the Pauls, just to pick up like a camera and just go, yo, here in the H1Z1 League is pretty lit.
From an Aussie bogan.
Nice. Good to see you, my bogan friend. And you know, he's doing, you know, and that's like 10 grand right there, apparently, just for like a 10-second clip. So he'll say anything for anything. I think Nerd City, the YouTuber, proved this as well, where he like got him to fucking promote some fake bullshit brand that he made. So, you know, these people have no scruples. These people have no moral compass. They don't even look at the products they will endorse. They will just say anything if there's a paycheck in it for them. So if Faze come along and say, hey, want X amount of money to appear in a diss track, appearance being what it is, by the way, as you'll see, you know, he'll do it. He'll do it. He'd do it if the fucking diss track was, I don't know, like fucking against the elderly. He just doesn't give a fuck. He just doesn't give a fuck. Like, it wouldn't matter which, you know, is there money in it? Yeah, I'll come and stand by it. It's about what now? Okay, cool. Anyway, let's, you'll notice immediately on the diss track, right? The big Tfue diss track, you'll see that it's got stop snitching on the thumbnail artwork. Now, snitching in this case means stop telling the truth about things that shouldn't be happening in the business, which is quite an interesting stance to take, isn't it? Keep in mind, this has all been signed off by their fucking COO or CEO, whatever title he has, Lee Trink, who is a former district attorney in New York, who seems to be having some sort of insane midlife crisis to go from being a DA to being a guy who's like, anyone who's telling the truth about illegal activity is straight snitching. Face the fuck up. Like, mate, I don't know if you're taking some fucking TRT or something, but like, you need to chill the fuck out, mate. It's not Oz. Okay, you know what I mean? So this is fucking just so dumb. You you know, Lee Twink or whatever his fucking name is. It's just so dumb that immediately, even on the thumbnail, it says "Stop snitching." You know what I mean? So anyway, just listen to this. It's terrible. It really is.
Hey guys, before we watch the video, just know I wanted to make something to like lighten up the mood, make it.
This is also pretty bad because what they've done is they have High Sky 1 come out and do a little intro and say, oh, I totally made this and I thought it would lighten the mood and it's completely innocent and it's completely benign. And again, this is the one thing it is completely scripted. There's actually nothing lightening the mood about this. For the reasons I've said, this is about consolidating the young Fortnite fan base to believe the Faze version of events rather than the Tfue version of events, and hopefully retain more of that fan base when Tfue eventually gets out of the contract and starts his own organization. Because as we saw in the last stream, there's about 3 or 4 different ways the contract can be voided. So I don't see Faze beating all of them, but anyway.
Like funny and stuff. I was hurt by a lot of stuff that happened, and this is just something I did for fun. It's not like meant to be taken too seriously, but like, yeah.
It's not meant to be taken too seriously, but now here's me, a child, reading a script I was given by the organization that potentially illegally employed me, and just listen to what it has to say. I also must apologize. It's one of the worst beats, and quite possibly just one of the worst all-round contributions to music I think I've ever heard. It is really bad, by the way. It's really bad. That was actually Lee Twink himself in the background. If you listen, Faze up. If you just listen carefully. That was Lee Twink's contribution to the song.
Stuff is gone. Thought you were real, you're wrong. That's why I made the song. Yeah. Can do what you want, good. Stick with your team, you should. You're no CEO, should.
So stick with your team. You should. It's all about that loyalty. You got to be loyal.
Yeah. In Fortnite, I'm good. I would body a ninja. Check my account, got banned, you snitch. Ain't no apologies either. I only lied to do what I love. You don't understand and it figures. You left the team when they needed you most. Qualified, then you got better.
So you can see straight away, we're going to reiterate the snitch thing. Got my account banned because of you. You didn't apologize. You left the team when they needed you the most. I don't even understand that. This is like a new layer to the story. Like, what were Faze going through that meant that Tfue absolutely must stay in this terrible, egregious contract, or any contract they subsequently offer them. Very bizarre.
They call you the GOAT, but I just don't know. I feel like Faze Clan made you bigger. They gave you a contract, wasn't that great, but you still pulled the trigger. Now you play victim like you wasn't drinking before you came to the cloud house. You know that's a lie, so why even try? Why would you open your mouth?
So, again, we'll just get this kid, who we have our own problems around our working relationship with, to say that, yeah, the contract was shit, but why did you sign it? As if that would ever excuse, some of the other things they've done, like, all the areas where it's immaterial breach, the talent agency stuff. Again, we'll gloss over that. And then one of the things that got fucking left, Tfue came out and basically said, I don't want to do anything about that in regards to the drinking. We're going to keep bringing that up because that's really the one key area where Tfue looks bad, because, we've seen the videos. He was a willing participant in drinking. Now, I don't know why you're having a 12-year-old bouncing around saying, we all know you were drinking before you were 21. Just weird, but okay.
I'm in a game, I got a drum. You would've thought I was marching. I hit up K, said I'm insane. Got me feeling like Jarvis. I'm glad you left. We ain't got time for snakes, so please hit the exit. You being fake. We know that you're not 100, so here, take a med kit. Yeah. Hey, pack up a stuff that's gone. Thought you were real, you're wrong. That's why I made the song. Yeah. Can do what you want, good. Stick with your team, you should. You're the CEO, should. Yeah. You never show love, when you do it's minimal. Are you Harry Potter? It don't make sense, shooting cloak like he invisible. I know they got reboot vans, but after this, there's no way you're saving him. If anyone wanna stand up for Tfue, you catch the L2 like I'm aiming it. We just saw Corinna at Logan House, R.I.P.
Wait, was that a fucking brap? Is someone gonna get brapped if they defend Tfue? What does that mean? What does that mean? That's like Immortal Technique, like scrat! What's that about? That's ridiculous.
After this, there's no way you're saving him. If anyone wanna stand up for Tfue, you catch the L2 like I'm aiming it. We just saw Corinna at Logan House, R.I.P. I think it's really too late for him. And once you blew up, saw your head getting bigger, and now you built like tomato skin. He left Faze stranded. You would think Tfue only had cash. The way he left banks abandoned. You like a Fortnite guy, cause you just be talking and rambling. Drinking the rage, but tell on the same thing, trying to do much damage. That's a little sus, Hamlin's.
Now, you can tell immediately that obviously Banks was involved in the writing of this song, because as we saw quite famously from that clip where he went, you know who never gets any credit, and he paused. Me. Now, I've actually gone out and measured that statement quite a bit, actually, and it turns out Banks, if you look at the pie chart, like, that's a circle. People who get credit from Faze, it's actually about 80% Banks. It's ridiculous. In fact, pretty much all of the people that have left, even Tfue himself, were kind of alluding to the fact that it's not Banks that's the issue, it's the other people that run the organization. So actually, Banks gets plenty of credit, but I can just sort of picture him listening to this, song and listening, and then going, can we get something in there about how people portrayed me specifically, because I kind of feel like I'm not getting any credit for this. So again, repeating the lie. You left Banks stranded. Yeah, I'm sure stranded on that massive pile of cash. Yeah.
Yeah. You told on a kid, mama said that it's slimy. I know that I'm young, born in 2000.
And this is weird as well. What a weird thing. You told on a kid. No, he didn't tell on a kid. He told on an organization that had you signed potentially illegally. And again, you'll see this quite often, when kids are being exploited in these working relationships. They don't know they're being exploited. Obviously this kid thinks Faze is doing him a favor. They don't realize that Faze is actually cynically using him to reach an audience. So the penny won't drop because he's 12. The penny won't drop until he's 18. So he's got 6 years of looking back and living in this la-la land. Fortnite will be dead by then. He got completely rinsed. He got completely rinsed. This kid should be with a Disney or something, right? That kind of, level. Instead, you spent it with Faze, who did nothing to protect your welfare, nothing to further your own interests. And between Faze and the parents, you're actually not going to have made all that much. It's going to be good for, maybe a down payment on a car when you're old enough to drive or something. That's going to be it, really. But whatever. This is just strange. My mom told me it's slimy. So again, we'll just bring the parents into this as if there's some sort of complete alliance. Remember, under the terms of the California Labor Code and the child labor laws in that state, the fact that his parents allowed him to enter into an illegal contract would mean they'd be liable too. So maybe taking life lessons about what's slimy and what isn't from certain people in your life, not always the best way to go.
You told on a kid, mama said that it's slimy. I know that I'm young, born in 2000, but I still got better 90s. We saw in your vid, looking scared, trying to prove that you're innocent. We know about Juke, where's the other? We want to know about Phineas.
So, what? Again, I'm not sure what Tfue could be guilty of to be trying to prove that he's innocent.
Journalism.
I think it's the other way around, isn't it? I think it's Faze
Yo.
that are trying to prove that they're innocent, I think. So it's nice to see that you get this lyrical projection going on. So, and yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good point, Paulie Birdo. Remember that if High Sky had sat down and wrote this, it would be probably okay. it would be ridiculous that pending all this litigation and legal stuff, Faze would allow it to go out. That remains ridiculous. But the fact is, a room full of adults sat down, wrote this song, produced this song, and then put it out into the public domain and thought this would be fine. And got a child who doesn't know any better to be the mouthpiece for all of this, like, bullshit to try and harm Tfue's reputation in the court of public opinion.
How ironic that I'm 12, but you the one that told on me. I'm landing frosty frights, I got something cold on me. All this lying that you've been doing, you're about to lose your fans. You let the juice get to your head, and now you're the Kool-Aid man. Yeah, hey, pack up your stuff, it's gone. Thought you were real, you're wrong. That's why I made the song. Yeah, can do what you want, good. Stick with your team, you should. You're the CEO, should. Yeah.
So, sorry about that, guys. I'm sorry I had to do it to you. So, yeah, this is, like, I don't know where to start with this. I mean, as I said, the situation, it is deliberately contrived to put Tfue in is absurd as well. Because, like, can you imagine if you're Tfue, right? Like, you can't, I mean, God, I would certainly hope this wouldn't happen, because, like, if Tfue made, like, a reply diss track, God, imagine having that, like, on your fucking CV, you know what I mean? Yeah, and then there was this one time this 12-year-old repeated a bunch of lies about, you know, about my career that Faze, his organization, told him to say. So I released a diss track on a 12-year-old. So you obviously can't address this. And again, Faze, no. I mean, you have to understand, Faze are lots of things. They're erratic. They're unprofessional. They are liars. But the one thing they aren't is stupid. And what they're doing here quite deliberately is putting Tfue in a position where he literally can't respond to this. And he has to watch as he is sort of attacked under the premise of it being, like, light and fun. And obviously there's nothing light and fun about it, because they're playing with the man's reputation and deliberately putting lies out there in the public domain to a key demographic of his prospective future audience, all while stalling out his ability to get free from a contract and create his own organization. Which, again, you know, is you know, there's just so many grounds on which this is slimy and cynical. So... And I'm of this mindset. I think with Tfue now, it's like any kind of loyalty you felt towards Banks. Remember, Banks signed off on this. Banks was very happy to do this to you. If you felt anything to anyone at Faze, this should be absolute proof that they never gave a fuck about you. That, you know, all this talk about family or whatever, you know, it's just lies. It's just a way to control, manipulate you, take unfavorable terms that benefit them, while they can project, we are Faze, the star makers. It's not about your talent. It's not about your ability. It's not about your personality. It's not about your presence. It's about us, the collective. And we're quite happy to turn on you if anyone ever wants to leave. Which, again, as I said, you know, you think about Optic and Courage. Optic was so instrumental in Jack getting this almost inexplicable rise to being one of the top streamers, because it certainly came late in his career when he moved over to streaming. I worked at Gfinity, I think it was, with Courage. So he, you know, but did Optic release any diss tracks, try and hold him into all these insane fucking terms? No, they just realized, like, he's gonna fly the nest, so what's the point in doing it poorly? Let's have a good relationship on the way out, and when he gets to the better place, he can always talk favorably about us, and there'll be a synergistic relationship there. Faze have no interest in anything that long term. It's short term, clicks, clout. That's just all they're ever focused on. That's all. Yeah, it's just how it is. So anyway, but that isn't the problem. I mean, this diss track sort of has been a little bit overshadowed, actually, because, you know, you might want to go back and check the videos that I did about this issue. because one of the and funny thing is actually I recorded a show. I don't know if you guys follow like Ryan Morrison, you know, the esports. Ryan Morrison is the gaming attorney, and Bryce Blum is the esports lawyer. These two guys were having an argument talking about, you know, some various aspects in esports and contracts and money and salary. So I wanted to get them together to do a show so they could hash it out and me act as a moderator. But then what happened was Thorin reached out at the exact same time I did. And they were like, oh, well, Thorin beat you by like, an hour or something. So I went on that show with Thorin. So Thorin's recorded an esports salon, and it's me, Bryce Blum, and Ryan Morrison sort of talking about esports contracts and everything else. So I recorded that. So I think I repeated it on there, but I've definitely said it in the past. The one thing that I said was going to happen off the back of this, there would be an exodus from Faze, because Tfue isn't just doing it for his own, well, he is doing it for his own self-interest, but the knock-on effect is that everybody who signed a contract that's similar to Tfue's is now in a position where they know, oh, actually, we can leave too. This contract is bullshit and it's invalid. And I said probably what you'll see at Faze is a lot of their big names are going to look to just leave, because as soon as it's ruled that Tfue's contract doesn't hold up and they've all signed identical contracts, are Faze really going to go through the fucking ringer again with the legal fees and the law and the litigation?
That's right.
To basically lose repeatedly because that contract, the exact terms and conditions under which that contract was signed, has been ruled to be invalid. Well, obviously the big jewel in the crown was Cloaks. And, oh God, is Kotaku going to start loading the ads? Maybe I shouldn't have chosen Kotaku for this. But yeah, Cloakzy was the big name, that they built the Fortnite team around. When Banks came out and made his super embarrassing response video, he basically said it was Cloakzy that was willing to give Tfue a shot after Banks asked him nicely. Well, there was clearly something wrong right from the start with Cloakzy, because when all of this Tfue stuff went down, you'll notice that he changed his G Fuel code. He said he was still going to play with Tfue. The only thing that he would say was that he felt Banks had sort of been caught in the middle of it, and that it was unfair on Banks, but the contract still sucked ass. And then lo and behold, it comes out that Cloakzy wants to leave now because he has the same contract as Tfue, which is pretty much nailed on to what I said was going to happen. And it's not a surprise. So this is pretty bad for Faze, because you can see here, this is the statement that they put out. Well, I'll just read you the report.
Even real journalism.
Another popular Twitch streamer is trying to leave Faze Clan. It's a little bit more, it's even bigger than that, honestly. Last month, popular, blah, 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 we'll skip all that. Faze player, High Sky, getting banned from Twitch after came to light, blah, blah. And then it says, now, Tenny's Fortnite duos partner, Dennis Cloakzy, is it Lapore or just Lapore, says he's trying to leave Faze too. Lapore has been in Tenny's corner throughout the latter's conflict with Faze, and very obviously so. And the two now live together, so it's not entirely shocking to see him heading for what he hopes will be greener pastures. Over the weekend, Faze made it official. Faze Clan and Cloakzy are in agreement to work towards his future departure from our team, reads a tweet from Faze's official news account. We will be open to transfer proposals from other organizations as we explore our options moving forward. And Faze Clan and Lapore have not yet responded to a request for comment. And it's super interesting because they've handled this the same way they should have just handled the Tfue situation. They basically have been really, professional, dare I say, about it. And I think that this this kind of shows as well where their head's at with Tfue. It's not that they're losing a player, because Cloakzy, while he's not as big as Tfue, just in terms of raw reach and raw audience, he's very well respected. I mean, beyond respected in the Fortnite scene. He's got a reputation for building teams, developing talent. But they're happy to let him go without any fuss. They're saying we're just open to it. We're open to offers. And that's because Cloakzy hasn't said he's going to go and make his own org, has he? So now you start to see the rationale behind why they're absolutely desperate to fuck over Tfue as much as possible and drag him out, getting out of the contract, because the natural org he would likely go to would be Tfue's new organization. So it goes on here. Lepore went on stream, so Cloakzy goes on stream and he says, like, you guys saw the contract, implying his contract contained the same unfavorable terms of percentage splits as Tenny's contract, which was leaked last month. The leaked contract, blah, 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 we all know the clauses. During his stream, Lepore went on to say that he's been trying to depart Faze for a while now. We haven't been in agreement with me leaving for the past 6 months. Now, this is a similar time frame to the Tfue situation. So I don't know what happened over at Faze, but basically the players got wind. I think probably his Fortnite was spiking in viewership and kind of felt that it was at its peak. They basically kind of got the idea that, wait, these contracts are ass. And to be clear, a $2,000 a month salary for being one of the biggest streamers on the planet and the biggest game on the planet is insane to me. It's insane. That's before we get into the splits. $2,000 salary is like, honestly, it's nothing. It really is nothing. To put that into context, because I believe in transparency, like, you guys know I am not a big streamer. You guys know that even though I've got a really loyal, solid community, you know, that because of the type of content I do, it's pretty much capped out. Again, like, if I ever want to go full wacky rich, who knows? But basically, you know, people like me, like Devin Nash, you know, like Sir Scoots, when we stream, when we commit to streaming, we know where our level's at, because people don't come and watch us for gameplay. Because we can't play games because we're old. I'm sure Scoots will say, you know, go fuck yourself. Get the fuck out of my industry, for implying Scoots can't play games. But, you know, I'm old. I've got one eye, one working eye, and one working hand. And, you know, everything's just, you know, I'm like Bukowski. I just sit here in a crumbling tower of myself. So, you know, my stuff's primarily talking. Now, listen, I'll add this. I did look over. I was looking at, there's this thing called twinge.tv, which basically is sort of a review of, you know, Twitch channels with metrics and everything else. Right, now the most you can get is a 5. And my stream had a 5 for interaction and a 5 for humor and, incredibly, a 3 for gameplay skill. Now, I don't know how I got a 3. That's outrageous in my opinion. That's the most outrageous part about that. But the fact that I got a 5 and a 5, I'm pretty happy about it. And there was like one review, because you can leave reviews like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb or whatever. You can Metacritic. You can leave a review, and there was one going best talk shows on Twitch. So there you go. But anyway, that type of content is capped out. That type of content is really capped out. So I can never be big. But to put it into context, I think my last 6 Twitch checks have been in the region of $2,000. Right? That's me. That's what I'm making on my Twitch. So that's before my work. That's before the Deserto freelancing. That's before my YouTube. So, you know, I maintain over 1,000 subs. So, you know, when you think about it in that context of individual earning potential, a $2,000 salary to surrender all of the things he surrendered is nothing for the top Fortnite talent. It's just nothing. Yeah, and exactly, and that's before donations. That's literally just on ads and subs. So, I know they let Tfue obviously keep his
You're
Twitch
not even a
money,
real journalism.
although I think they actually ruled that
right.
they could take it and probably will look to get some backdated payments when this all goes bad. For Faze, that is. But, yeah, I mean, the ridiculousness of it all. You know, to try and pay somebody of Tfue stature a $2,000 salary. And again, we just had this story about Furia, the Brazilian CS team, where their contract got leaked today, their old contract before they signed for 5 years, which, oh my God, I can't wait for By the Numbers tomorrow to talk about that shit. You know, and it was $1,400. So $1,400 a month for what was at that point a up-and-coming Brazilian CS player. $2,000 for Tfue, one of the biggest streamers on the planet. So, you know, these salaries are beyond derisory. It make no sense, and that's before you even get into the cuts. So the fact that somebody like Cloakzy has been on the same salary for all this time while shouldering the extra burden of captaincy and giving up all the same splits is, I don't know. It's almost worse than Tfue in a way, because you expect this guy to play an active organizational role on top of everything else. So yeah, I think basically 6 months ago or whatever it was, somebody, the penny dropped that they were getting ripped off and they wanted out, and they knew they could make more money elsewhere. And keep in mind, in the Fortnite world, it's only Faze that you're hearing about running this shit. By the way, you'll notice you've never heard a TSM player, complain, or whoever else, right? Like all the other big organizations in NA with Fortnite players. You haven't heard anything about them. Just Faze, just specifically Faze came up with this like rookie contract concept, and of course are in the fucking are out there in the news going, well, the next contract we make is gonna blow everyone away. It's gonna be industry future proof because midlife crisis man Lee Twink say so. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's nonsense. You're just robbing everyone blind. And anyway, according to... so he said, we haven't been in agreement for me leaving for the past 6 months because I've been trying to leave for the past 6 months before the whole Tfue thing came out. I just went with the more passive route. I went with the route of, listen, I'm willing to work this out. So that's even more interesting, because if we take him at his word, which, spoiler, don't always believe the player version, but if we take him at his word, he even said, like, I'll work this out, but this contract is ass. And yet that's been the public stance of Faze all the time. They've been publicly saying, well, we tried to offer Tfue money to stay and he wouldn't, and that's why he's a snake and a traitor and a rat, and we're not going to let him go. He will sign the contract. We offered him 7 figures. What are you doing for Cloakzy? And again, arguably more important within the structure and hierarchy of your organization. Sure, star players are big, but captains, they shoulder an administrative burden as well, and that should be reflected in your contract talks. And then he also said, and this is just classic Faze, according to Lepore, Faze's tweet about his departure took him by surprise. The two sides have been quietly butting heads for 6 months, he said, during the stream, and now suddenly the org was willing to let him go. He chalked that up to his failure to qualify for Epic's $30 million Fortnite World Cup. Super cynical again. This is just Faze in a nutshell. Just super cynical bullshit. You, our captain, was built up all of our teams and squads and helped develop talent. He was on thin ice from the moment he sided with Tfue and ceased to be of any value to the organization. And when they didn't qualify, which I'm sure in Faze's mind, he did it on purpose, right? Because he's not going to compete in the $30 million Fortnite World Cup, and therefore Faze can't get their ends and get their split of any potential prize money, which will be a big old chunk of change, because that's just how Fortnite rolls. They just decided, we will publicly announce we are now going to let him go without even telling the player first. So you're the captain of Faze's Fortnite team, and you wake up and you go, super disappointed about everything that went on with the Fortnite World Cup, didn't qualify. Guess we got to get back down to live streaming for Faze and maybe trying to iron out and flesh out what's going on. And then you just look on Twitter and they've just tweeted that they're actually not going to renegotiate. We're just going to let you go fuck yourself. So he said, they didn't come to me before they posted, so it seems like now they're in agreement with letting me go because they didn't qualify for the World Cup. I've been trying to leave for 6 months, or trying to find a good contract. I'm on the same shit I've been on since I signed at Faze. He noted, however, that he doesn't want to go to another team, despite Faze implying otherwise. I don't want to be transferred, so I don't know why they put that in there. On Twitter, he clarified he's not departing the organization simply because Tenny is trying to leave. Also, unlike Tenny, Laporte doesn't seem to have misgivings with Faze as a whole. There's nothing wrong with Faze, he said during his stream. I mean, all the evidence points to the contrary. Faze is still a great org. All respect to Banks, who never gets any credit, remember, guys. All respect to every single person on Faze. We couldn't come to a conclusion, that's it. So this is a bizarre situation because, again, it completely contradicts. They're basically doing all the things they criticized Tfue for. They said Tfue didn't have their back. Tfue didn't respect the family. What they've done here is, as soon as their captain has failed to qualify for a big tournament, they have, again, without even consulting him, pushed him out of the organization when he wanted to stay and was willing to have negotiations rather than sign a contract. So how's it like a big family, guys? Doesn't that completely contradict everything they've said about Tfue and everything they've accused Tfue of? Absolute gibberish. So just a nonsensical stance from Faze across the board. And at every turn, it proves that this is all about money and stopping Tfue making his own organization. And they'll go to any ends to make that happen. Any ends. And not a family, because as soon as you don't qualify for a tournament, you're out on your ass. Meanwhile, of course, Tfue's a traitor. Tfue's a snake. You know, fuck. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And I'd like to think that the only people that this pulls the wool over their eyes are kids who don't know any better. That's it. Surely everybody can see this for the cynical bullshit that it is on both counts. Faze, what a shit show.